names. Usually, I totally have a girl crush on you.
Hello. Kimberly, you guys stop reading out loud because I just went live on the hello, everybody.
Why would you do that?
Well, because I wasn't thinking. That's why. I didn't realize that I wasn't thinking. I'm sorry. That's my bad. That was inconsiderate of me, and I should have waited. I apologize for that. Sheila W says, happy birthday.
Oh, so Sheila W is the one who made this. I was just showing this to my son. My son's here. I gave him a buzz cut, and so I was bragging to him about all of our exciting fans that we have on the channel and how much I love you all. My therapist is right there. Planet Ketchup.
Planet Ketchup is our therapist.
That's a therapist.
She's an amazing therapist. If you ever have any relationship problems, call her. I'd highly recommend Becky.
Can you get into the screen and show them how beautiful my son's face is?
Look at this beauty pageant winner.
This is my baby.
He's won another beauty pageant now. Look at that handsome young man flexing those big muscles.
Don't get me out of this.
Okay. There. So, hello and best of everything for whatever his occasion. Well, whatever his occasion is, live stream Saturday for 48 years. For the next 48 years straight, I will live stream. This is going to be a 48-year-long live stream. And that will mean that I have to live at least till 96, because today I am 48 years old.
Yay!
You could also interpret, thank you. You could also enter, I have successfully lived another year. You could also interpret it as the first 48 years of my life were kind of like a live stream, except without any live streaming. No, very little live streaming. No, Becky, you're not a therapist, you're a theraflu. Okay? You're a drink that people consume when they think they're getting cold.
She's my theracorn.
Yeah, you're a tunicorn. Half tuna, half unicorn. Adult psychiatrist? No, I wouldn't say she's an adult psychiatrist. I'd say she's a bringer of wisdom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to do kind of like core, like you have to use, I mean, I don't know, not just any therapist could help us. So like it would have to be something that has to do with being able to talk to you in a what way?
Well, see, it may be that Becky is just perfectly positioned to solve many chemistry problems too. Well, you're talking about me being an adult psychiatrist. I'm not a psychiatrist at all, let alone adult or children psychiatrist. Okay, so Planet Ketchup.
Yeah, they're all very nice.
What was I saying about that? It is true that she's uniquely well positioned to deal with my and Kimberly's problems because she's an ENTP, but she's a chick, and she identifies more with Kimberly's kind of history than mine, in some sense. And she's gone and done all of the personal experiential research that an ENTP needs to do to really understand things. So I don't have to, right? I'm not going to go try out these other things. She's already tried them out. And she can talk to me in ways that make perfect sense to me. And they convey to me that I'm being heard, which is very difficult sometimes if you're arguing cross functions. So when Kimberly and I are using functions that are maybe inconsistent or in this instance inconsistent, then we can talk past each other a lot. And that makes me feel like I'm not being heard. It probably makes Kimberly feel the same way. Anyway, she's well positioned to make sure I feel heard because she can communicate to me in ENTP talk as she normally does. But she's also well positioned to make Kimberly feel heard because she comes into it understanding the significance of the weight one carries with one from past experiences, I guess, more so than I do. Plus, she's got the gender identification, which naturally is going to make her more moist just a little bit, maybe. Just a little bit. Like, it's not necessarily the case, but I think the estrogen mixed with the velvety folds mixed with the memories
But she's also so unbiased.
means there's a little extra moisture in a woman. Which that means, Kimberly, you say that means she's unbiased.
I feel like she's unbiased.
I do think she is unbiased.
Like she nails both of us when she needs to.
Well, she's trying to be solvency driven. She's going like, okay, I need to make sure Eric feels heard, but I can't let this become a rhetorical battle.
Mm-hmm. She does lay me in bed at night and go, "You do know you're my number one favorite, right?" And then kisses me on the forehead, and I said, "Yes, Planet Ketchup."
That helps. It does. F5 plus logic equals what the fuck? No, I mean, look, the thing is, that's one of the complications in life that we all have to deal with is that we can be right, and that can either be appropriate or inappropriate way to understand things. And it's hard for people who use a lot of TI. TI dominant like Colin or a TI tool user like me is going to be pretty stick-to-itiveness about the words. Like, no, that's incorrect. There's no reason to say that these are the words you said. And now you're saying, well, I didn't mean that. You know, a TI heavy person is going to be slightly offended ontologically by that. Like, you have a responsibility to say what you mean. You have a responsibility to choose words that convey your actual meaning. But of course, a lot of people don't choose words in that way because they're trying to convey something that's kind of resistant to conveyance, namely the many rippled uniqueness of feelings. And for somebody like me with polar FI, I don't really get that. I don't get when it is appropriate to use that modality, which it is a lot of times. And I'm learning some of that reality from Becky. Becky's showing me stuff about, I mean, what talking with her has allowed me to go, okay, that thing, that's what a feeling is. And that's how you look for it. You look into your own motivations. And it's strange you could think that I went 47 years without knowing that. But this is the first time I really feel like I had an operationalized definition of feelings.
Thank you, Becky.
Would being moderately moist cause one to have less bodily fluid production and expression in the O? It's a good question. It's a good question, Brittany. I think that emotional moisture has an indeterminate relationship with physical moisture. That is to say, there's a general corollary that states that the moisture you are in your heart with your tenders, the deeper they dangle into dampness. But that doesn't say concurrently that there's a correlation that's consistent. It's just a general trend. It's not like proportionality or inverse proportionality or anything like that. Good question, though. You don't have to feel them the way an FI user does to see them. Oh, emotions. Yeah, well, what happens is when I do see it, I realize, oh, I am feeling that. How annoying. You know, like, well, why are you really doing this? Why are you really about to say this thing, Eric? Well, it's because you're resentful. That's your motivation. Oh, so should I not say it then? Because what I'm saying is true anyway. Shouldn't matter what my motivation is, right? The words I'm saying are legit, true, fine, fair, just, and good. They're not open to critique. So what difference does it make what my motivation is? But of course, it makes more of a motivation than you can successfully argue that it does. You know, it's like I can win that argument I was making right there, but it doesn't change the fact that motivations are more complex things than that, and actions are more complex. And really, you've got to, if you want to shift over to TEFI kind of a frame where you're thinking about efficacy and your own emotions and what's important to you, then you need to pay attention to your motivation. And it's a strange thing to not have understood it all or had any sort of abstract framework to understand it with until I was almost 48 years old. It's weird. It's weird to think about. It trips me out to think about it. Oh, that's what it means to be blind to something. To go 47 years and not even aware that you have no idea how you would go about looking for your emotions, and that's odd. I think that's probably true. So yes, Joseph has said something good there. If he says T equals rationale, TI equals logic, there's a certain truth to that. Rationale implies justification for out of interest more than logic does. I would say a better distinction would be something like
make sure you do it though as soon as I get it to you because it's late.
I mean, it's outcome versus legitimacy, you know. T is more focused on efficiency and TI is on accuracy, but again, it's not actually accuracy. TE and TI can both be all about accuracy. You know, I've got to accurately repair something for it to work. I've got to accurately, you know, whatever. It depends what you mean by accurate. A better way to put it is it's about efficacy and legitimacy. Those are the two conflicting values. It's the same conflict that reappears in all of human history. You want to talk about a real archetype, talk about the archetype of utilitarianism versus deontology. That's what we currently know it as, but it's manifest throughout history in myriad different incarnations. It's the same fight over and over again, util versus deontology. And the conclusion is pretty straightforward. It's that the deontologists are right because the things they're arguing about almost always are public sphere things. And the utilitarians are misapplying personal calculi to a public event, public. I don't know right now. I'm kind of a stickler when it comes to words. Do you have any? It says Sheila W, not me. That could easily come from me after I just said that previous thing, but. Do you have any thoughts on the difference between how INFP and INFJ might approach social justice? INFJ is going to be much more, what you call the normal, kind of a normal law and ordery approach to it, which is to say they're going to be concerned about justice. INFJ will for sure, and they're going to have also a sense of principled justice. And some particularist justice, but it's going to lean more towards rights, whereas INFP is going to lean more towards experiences. Like they're going to be like, don't punish anybody, let everybody go and just rehabilitate them. There shouldn't be any retributive justice. That's mean. Stop talking shit about the dictator. Don't say mean things about Kim Jong-un. That's your INFP. When I say becoming self-aware involves realizing which function best serves X and reflecting on whether that function is the lens you're perceiving it. I definitely think it varies from person to person. How much, whether that's an algorithm that one can apply, I don't know. But you didn't really say it was an algorithm that one could execute. You said it involves this. Does it involve that? Yes, for sure. It definitely involves realizing, thank you, Sheila W. You're a sweetheart. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. I would say that it definitely, which function best serves is reflecting on whether that function is the lens you were perceiving it. It's not so much that last piece I would take maybe a little exception with, just to be persnickety and quibble over shit, really, not because it needs to be taken apart like this. But I think that the first step in the whole process of metacognition should be recognizing a process of beginning to recognize more regularly when you are cognating in certain ways and what that means. But that's something that continues to develop. It's kind of like you only have so much attention that you can direct towards your attention before you start getting in an infinite loop, right? So you have to sort of habituate yourself to noting things that are out of the ordinary attentionally in any way. And then remember, that's how it is for me anyway. That prompts my memory to think about how I'm thinking. This is interesting. I had a conversation about this with Delilah today. But, and so then when you're coming across situations for an SI user like me anyway, it takes a long time to build because it's 4 slot. I make notes of both events in terms of cognition, but also in terms of externals. So okay, I'm having some sort of conflict, problem, difficulty, whatever, challenge, and I think to myself, all right, this is starting to feel like that banging my head against the wall thing. So what am I doing wrong here? Yeah. And I'm usually a step behind. I'm rarely ahead. I'm rarely ahead of the game in that regard. That's a good question, though. Would it be correct to say that TE and TI can both be described as motivations? No. I would say that motivations, now that in my current understanding of it, motivations are FI. TI are ways to justify legitimately or not. The thing is, your FI tends to, if you're a tool user like me, my FI tends to fall in line with my TI broadly. There are rarely instances when my feelings aren't logically justifiable because I tend to feel less than everybody else. Now, it's not. You got to remember that something like logically justifiable feelings means feelings that are considered proportional when compared against some median, right? Like, well, normally if somebody says, sometimes I think you just don't listen, like that it doesn't evoke screaming rage and pulling one's hair out and stuff like that. So one would say that would be a disproportionate response to the stimuli, right? Because I've got low FI, as a general rule, my response to stimuli are not disproportionate, except in ways that other people will sometimes find comedic. So as a consequence, it's where did I start this thing with? Oh, the TITE thing. So it's like I'm perceived as having. So my TI is calculating that stuff, not really explicitly, but it's aware of those dynamics, and so it, along with my FE, goes, all right, well, this is a feeling. This is the external reality or the calculation that I'm making, and then the feeling will follow from that based on a metaframe that's built of those functions in general. So it's a kind of a complicated question to answer, but I would say no is the answer. I would say TE is about how to get what you want as a motivation. So your motivation is still FI. TI is how to legitimize what you want, or whether what you want is right, is another way to put it. So it's like there are plenty of times. I have many decades now of experience of having feelings and recognizing that my feelings, I might want it to be that way, but that way is wrong. And what has come to happen is my strongest feeling is that I want to be right. It's not attachment to any particular other thing that I might be saying. And if you've habituated that, then your TI and your FI are basically coordinated in terms of your motivations. Your TI is always serving your FI motivation because your FI comes after the TI. It's hard to explain, but I am pretty sure that's kind of how it works. For me as an FI polar person. Let's see. In a similar way that FE and FI are, well, I don't think that FE is a motivational thing either. I think FE is more motivational in the sense that everybody does operate on certain FI universals that are about being liked, being thought warm, being thought competent, whatever. And FE as a cognitive function operates on that engine. It knows that people have those FI universals and operates using that information as an engine. But FE itself is not, again, motivational. It's operational. It's how you interface with dynamic systems in a metaphysical dimension, which is, say, social systems. Okay. Any thoughts on how a team consisting of an ESFP, ENTP, and ISTJ would be like? What are they doing?
Thank you, Sheila.
What is the team doing? Are they competing in an activity or a sport or something? Or are they building something for work? Or what are they doing? Professional victim says hi. Hello. Hi, professional victim. Was it difficult for you when you lost your amateur status? Or were you just happy to finally make the pros? Why is there no TE first slot, TI second slot human? Can someone pay attention to both sides of thinking in that manner? No. Here's the reason why it's not like that. Because like all such things, the reason why the functions are arranged the way they are is there's redundancy as to why. In other words, because my first slot is extroverted intuition, it defines my fourth. That means it's introverted sensitive. Now, let's say you want to put introverted intuition after extroverted intuition. Well, remember, extroverted intuition needs to ignore introverted intuition, and in order to do its shit. Introverted intuition will continually say, well, here's the single answer. You don't need to ideate any further. And extroverted intuition needs to ignore that on an ongoing basis to continue to ideate further. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't utilize introverted intuition in unconscious ways that can be very effective. It can be strong at it, whatever you want to call it, but it's still ignoring. And it also means, if you're an extroverted intuition Dom, that you inherently are going to express introverted intuition as an unconscious valuing of others that is going to be your scorecard for the world. When I'm evaluating some piece of media or some public figure or whatever, I'm going to look to see if that individual is committed to the truth as a value in order to validate them. It's a binary validation. It's just pass, fail. But if they're adequately committed to truth, they'll pass that test. This is implicit to being an extroverted intuitor, because to be able to ideate safely requires that people have a certain level of commitment to the singular truth. In other words, I'm building off of those truths. I can't have people putting false floors underneath me. So it makes logical sense that introverted intuition on a value level has to be in the fifth slot as well. So there's a couple of reasons right there why NI has to be in the fifth slot if NE is in the first. So the same thing with TE and TI. TE is an efficacy-based thing that is not checking legitimacy. Checking legitimacy means you're checking all the things against each other, and if you mix it with extroverted intuition, it means and checking all the things that aren't there as well. Okay, so it's you're using the negative space and saying, okay, this is all the stuff that's here, and these are all the possible things that aren't here based on what's here. And in other words, here are all the things that might be said next, for example. With TI, then, you need to parse out either actualities in full or potentialities in full, depending on whether it's paired with SE or NE. With TE, to be effective, you need to eliminate all irrelevant potentialities from even entering consideration. You don't have to eliminate them actively. They need to have not entered consideration in the first place. So if I walk over to this doorknob over here and I go, I need to fix it, I don't need to start with, well, let's see, I'm not going to need this rake, and I'm not going to need this broom, and because that's TI kind of shit, right? That's saying, let's name shit and talk about it. And what I need is to focus on the actual thing in front of me without words, understand how it works together with its own logic, again, without words, and fix the thing. The intersection is like teaching a class. I have very good TE as a teacher, and the reason I do, and what makes me a good teacher, is because I will say to the students, okay, so this intrinsic extrinsic motivation card here, it talks about what's intrinsic motivation, what's extrinsic motivation, and what's your locus of causality. So we need to make sure we understand what all those terms are. The first term is intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic means inside of you, and it means if you want to do it by yourself without anybody offering you anything or threatening you at all, you're intrinsically motivated to do it. So it's self-motivated, okay? Joey, what does intrinsically motivated mean? And then maybe he wasn't paying attention. Okay, and I'll repeat it. Self-motivated. Give me an example of it. Make sure he understands like that. That interfacing with the students, not as social beings, but rather as cogs in a learning machine, basically, is TE in a nutshell. Note that it doesn't have any intellectual shit to it at all. It's actually the process of making sure everybody's learned their shit. Checking for understanding, making them repeat it 5 times, fucking checking again 5 minutes later, and then make them repeat it again to make sure it sticks. And doing things like getting their attention by clapping when Like all the shit you do to make sure that everybody's on point and actually your time is being maximally used to get information into their heads.
Oh, now I get why you clap and snap at me.
Anybody who's not listening, yeah?
It does not work.
Okay, well, you know.
When you clap and snap, you look like a...
I will not let people ignore my words
nutty coop.
and just carry on as though I didn't say what I said.
And then you...
So,
freak out like a monkey.
So that's why there can't be TI and TE in the same slot, is because they run afoul of each other. If I'm doing that checking on the students, right, and understanding, I'm not thinking out ideas at all. I'm not checking the legitimacy of the ideas that I'm teaching them. I'm saying, repeat after me. We're not talking about the idea. We're not discussing it. I'm not thinking about it. I'm making sure they have it drilled into their little heads, right? That's why TE and TI can't be 1, 2, because you can't have the dominant nature of that and then something that contradicts it as a tool function. Okay. Whew, I'm way behind. Let's see. Tripped out an ESTP when I told them I wasn't aware of my body position in a room, my volume, whether people are hearing what I'm saying. Well, it's your SE will get better in some of the, at least in the last bit. My ENTJ wife just met my ISFJ boyfriend. We tried a threesome, but it isn't working so far.
Pass?
Well, not necessarily flow state. Gratal could be a lady lesbian. What types always question their type over and over again? I think I am an INFP 4-wing 5459. Well, I got some shocking news for you, Total Transformation. The type that continually questions their type over and over again all the time.
Your type.
Is the INFP. You're demi-gendered? Oh. No, you half match each of the groups, Gratal. You half match them if you're demi-gendered. No, I'm sorry. You're a small coffee cup's worth of each gender. You speak for Damon too when you say you. Oh, am I supposed to know that? Is that today? No, that's tomorrow. What time is that tomorrow? I'm supposed to do that thing with you, Taylor. I forget what time it was. 11? 11 in the morning? I was thinking like the way a TE Dom is motivated to move in direction that is for purpose, whereas a TI Dom is motivated to prove whether this works from A to Z. I think a TI type is motivated to establish what the right words are about things or what the right course of action is, depending on if they're compared with NE or SE. It's wholesome. Okay, good. Is Taylor a girl name or a guy name? Well, on this Taylor, it's a guy name. Taylor is a male. I'm actually from the TWFP video chat room. Don't shoot me, lol. Okay, I won't shoot you. I haven't shot anybody yet. Don't plan to. Why do so many in these rooms have J's in their name? It's a popular letter. It's a fad right now. Everyone's putting J's in their names. That's why I'm Jarek now. Ryan Harrison. So when I took the test twice, I came up as INFP first, then INFJ second. This is common, right? I really think I'm NIFE is a simple way to tell. I mean, not definitively. I can tell pretty instantly if you're. I mean, not necessarily. INFP and INFJ can be a little tricky to tell apart, but usually you can pull one apart from the other without too much effort. The key thing to remember is INFPs are NI countervaluing and NE tool function. And that means they have a real hard time answering straightforward questions with straightforward answers. When I ask them, what do you value more, authenticity or efficacy? And they'll be like, well, it really depends on. They're always depending. Everything's always depending because, of course, they've got no solid ground to stand on with FI and NE. So if you're like that, if you're a captain, it depends.
Him and a har.
Yeah, Captain Him Ha, it depends. Captain Him Ha, it depends is a person who really has trouble making decisions. then you're an INFP. You're type number 17. Okay. That's a fun type to be. Hello, gentlemen. Hello, concerned British man. I'll respond not just on my own behalf, but on behalf of the other gentlemen here, okay? Ladies, he's not talking to you. Eric, do you think limiting the access to assault weapons in the USA will lower gun crime? Have a nice day, mate. No, I don't think so. I don't think that there will be any meaningful impact for more gun legislation. If the thing you're trying to impact is mass shootings, then definitely no. Gun crime, not from assault weapons, but maybe if you implement really strict gun laws, you might lessen gun crime a bit. I don't think it's going to be much of an impact in the U.S. because we got 300 million plus guns in the country already. How's the knife violence over there? It is rampant. It's like a cutlery store that's ill-advisedly placed inside of one of those spinny things at the carnival. Why they put it there, nobody knew. Would you agree that Iron Man is an ENTP? Yeah, but I mean, it's a character, so he's not a real ENTP in any sense. He's way more effective than a real ENTP. Okay, what is the type of Logan Paul? I don't know. I've never seen him. Seems like an ESFP, probably, though, from what I've heard. But I have no idea. Define assault weapon. Fully auto guns are already illegal. Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into the details of it, this notion that assault weapons are somehow distinct from semi-automatic rifles is kind of a silly distinction, I think. Is it racist to point out there are a lot of foreigners committing knife violence in the UK? I would call it immigrantist, probably. My position on immigration is I might have positions on certain kinds of immigration before people enter the country. Once they enter the country, I believe everybody ought to be treated equally. And I don't single out groups like that. Although a lot of times I will admit this. A lot of times I'll say some kind of racisty things about the Mexican neighbors because they're just such awful Mexicans. The thing is, I have Mexicans in my family, right? Like, my daughter's got a little bit of Mexican in her. My first wife was half Mexican. My second wife was all Mexican. My daughter's a quarter Mexican. I've always gotten along fine with Mexicans. I like Mexicans. I like their culture. I used to like it more when I drank beer too, you know.
You love to put yourself into Mexicans.
I like to hump Mexicans. I like to go to their parties, you know, whatever. I'm down with Mexicans. But these people are fucking trash. I mean, they're the trashiest kind of Mexicans. So I tend to say some racist shit about them. But I think my point in doing that is somewhat even to show that, look, race is just this one little thing. They aren't a problem because they're Mexicans. They're a Mexican version of a problem, you know? So, and they are that for sure. The basura family, I call them, which means trash in Spanish. They are the trashiest bunch of trash I've ever trashed my trash on. Okay. You can use a car oil filter as a suppressor. That's a great tip, Taylor. Thanks. We really need to have a suppressor because currently my gunfire is inadequately suppressed. I mean, what does that do even? Let's see. I think once an ENTP has worked with the TI logic, they're capable of easily converting that to TE. The TE is demonstrative. It comes natural. I was thinking about this too. It comes out all the time. You don't really pay attention to it. You don't really think you're doing anything. You don't really like that part of things. You tend to forget to attend to it. But especially when it involves things like teaching them, can be quite reflexive about doing that stuff. The real problem in America is mental health. Nut jobs having guns is bad. I mean, having nut jobs is bad. But what are we going to do? Make them illegal? Flow States had 15 of them. about 5 AKs, never shot one person. That's a good record. You're batting 0. That's what you want to bat in the shooting department. Yeah, but you don't seem like you're mentally disturbed. Well, you don't know him that well. You might take a gun or watch if you met him. I'm just teasing you, Taylor. Yeah, every crime would go down guns without the UK. I doubt it. I don't think those British people are responsible enough to handle guns, Michael Thompson. I think only we Americans can handle it, probably.
Come here, boo, boo, boo.
Hey, have you heard what they're doing with knives over there? It's like a flying cutlery store. Like, using this way by configuring the rack in this fashion, I can fix the doorknob in 3 less steps with a screwdriver. Yeah, like that kind of shit. Notice you're ever in a place where everyone has a gun and people are much more polite. Now, keep in mind, I don't approve of that as a modality of attaining politeness. I don't want to feel like my life's faintly in danger as a means of keeping me mannerly. But, there is a point to it, which is the message there is people are more polite because everybody's equally autonomous in some regard, Sometimes I get a metaphorical blowjob when you guys are praising me. Well, Becky, you deserve it because you've had a massive impact. I was thinking about people who have big impact me in the car. I was thinking about Mr. Samuelson, this former mentor teacher I had. He had a huge impact on me, and he taught me how to teach, and he taught me how to TE, basically. He was like, nope, you got to actually do it properly. You're not going to half-ass this. You're not going to fucking joke around. And, that was very helpful. You had a huge impact as well. And because, these relationship problems were very stubborn. And I see big impacts. So, I appreciate it. That's why I say shit like that. I don't gush about shit much in general. Let's see. Eric, if cognitive function is based on habits that must be developed throughout time, meaning people aren't born as certain types. Well, I would say that when we talk about cognitive functions, we can talk about them as habits because we have to understand because this, in any given moment, if you take any 5-minute period, you'll get some manner of attention from some individual during that period of time. What makes it a habit is the fact that to understand the configuration requires that we look at which attentional manners are preferred habitually over time. That's what makes it a habit, in the sense that we can't understand it as a configuration looking at so small a snapshot of time. But just because it expresses the habit from that angle doesn't mean that it's developed as a habit, although it is. It doesn't mean that. See, the word habit is a tricky one because it implies like you can change your habits, right? Like I could quit smoking and take up smoking cloves instead if I wanted to. But attentional manners, though we talk about them as occurring habitually, are not habits like that. See what I'm saying? Okay. There are just too many people who have bad agendas of like wiping a specific group out. I wonder why and why we aren't treating these people in institutions. Well, the hate thing, I get it. It expresses not just in terms of race or gender or whatever, expressed in terms of like politics, Democrats hating Republicans. It's the whole group identification problem. The reducing of other individuals to members of groups so that you can more easily calculate things about the world. Unfortunately, it gives you incredibly inaccurate calculations. So it's a bad thing to do. But people have a very hard time understanding something that makes them very unhappy as not needing to have blame assessed, Like, how can those fucking Republicans elect that Trump, blah, blah, blah. Somebody's got to be held accountable here. And those idiots, what are they thinking? You know, what they're really mad about is that Trump's president. They aren't really mad at any individual person. And so they don't have anybody really to be mad at. So they're mad at this group of people who voted for him. That's the kind of thing that ends up happening because people get attached to their words and their convictions, and they ontologically link to them in ways that are counterproductive in terms of actual understanding of complex issues. Okay. Eric, what do you think about Linda Barron's model? I used to think it was dumb, but for the most part, I think a couple of errors it isn't too bad of a tool. I don't really know what it is exactly. You have to give me more specifics about what you want me to comment on. There are just too many people who have a bad idea about that. However, do you think it's possible EJRND is actually an INFJ who tried to break everything down to one single point now combines typology and Christianity? No, I think he's an ESTP who's trying to break everything down to one single point combining typology and Christianity because he's got shitty fourth slot NI. That's not an example of good NI. That's an example of NI done badly. Like my SI is often done badly. C.S. Joseph will win in a debate. He is a mafioso. Does that make him a good debater? I don't think so. Eric, I have trouble typing ESFPs and ESTJs. Can you flesh out the differences? Well, you should be able to eliminate ESTJs from an ESFP's potential pool by doing some TI testing. So ESTJ will do fine on TI testing. It may take them a little prompting or two to get the point of what you're asking them because they're not really used to thinking of it that way. It's ignoring for them, but they can do it just fine. Just like I can pick the best poem if you show me 5 poems or something. And ESTJs, you know, they're TE DOMs, so their kind of extroversion is much more purposeful than the extroversion of ESFPs, who tend to be all over the place. Eric, what was my SAT score? It was 1270 out of 1600. I got almost a perfect score on the verbal, and I did kind of iffy on the math part. I would like to see how Eric responds to control versus movement in C.S. Joseph's system and what he would describe himself as. I mean, the thing about those kind of post-function dichotomies is they're saying, well, I'm going to look at interaction style. You know, it's still post-function because they're saying these interaction styles correlate with these functions, and therefore I'm going to assume if you show this interaction style, you have those functions. But the correlation is just that. It's not 100%. It's not a super strong correlation. It's just a display tendency. Like, you know, it might be the case that most of the time as an any TI user, I'm going to interface or interact with other people with a certain style, or I'm going to interface with the world or interact with the world with a certain style. But it's not always going to be the case. And it depends when you look at me. And it depends on the context of what you're asking about whether I have this kind of style or not. So a much better question or a much better approach is to look directly towards what is the function doing? What is the manner of attention actually? How does it attend? And how can we tease that out from a conversation rather than allowing ourselves to get misled by things like control versus movement, which is a display taxonomy that can only have any meaning if it occurs after the function thing. And if it's tried to be put before the functions, then it leads to a disastrous mishap of wrongness that C.S. Joseph currently finds himself adrift in. Just because somebody makes videos for prepubescent girls doesn't mean he's an ESTP. Logan Paul might be an ESFP. I don't know. He seems like an extrovert from the little snippets and shit I've seen. Is he the one who went to Japan with the dead bodies and stuff? Can you do a typing of Ice Poseidon? I'm sure I'll type police that person. If they claim to be something. He does feel his actions are right either. he obviously has bad FE. Logan Paul's an ESFP or ENFP. Just because he's an idiot doesn't mean he doesn't process with TI. Well, that's true. But like I said, I haven't seen enough of them to make any judgments about it, really. I don't think an FE user would have done what he did in the woods, for example. ENFP might, if they're just unaware of how seriously people's FI is going to take it, stuff like that. That's certainly a conceivable ENFP mistake. But I mean, just musing. Let's see. Let's jump it down. You think Tony Stark is an ESTP? I think Tony Stark is a make-believe character who has qualities of ENTP and qualities of ENTJ and qualities of ESTP, and suppressor equals silencer. Do you remember the guy you asked the troll question to? I didn't struggle to answer that at all. I don't struggle with knowing what I do, even in situations I could never actually experience. Well, that tends to be more NI than any, at least with FI, His B, different B, a Maverick seems FI. Guess that rules INFP out then. Probably. I mean, I'd have to talk to you. The only way you can make the claim is you can objectively judge every single ESP on the grounds of their intelligence. I hate when I'm watching a crime movie and they don't have silencers on their weapons. It's unrealistic. The only time I struggle much, generally, is when FE concerns come into play. Well, that's not really consistent with INFJ. I mean, what do you mean by struggle, though? See, that's the thing. You got to talk to somebody and figure out what they mean by what they say. Actually, never mind. You said I have ever seen so in your particular experience. Oh, I don't know who you're talking about. I think a lot of mafia guys use silencers. Just use a coffin. Use a coffin for what? A planter? A place to put my pond? Hey, Eric, how do you go about scheduling a personal typing session? Well, you can email me at Suartscire. That's my name, Eric Strauss, backwards. SSUARTSCIRE @gmail.com. And I will answer any questions you have. My PayPal address is, I'll put that here in a second, gmail.com. My PayPal address is different from my email address. It costs $100 for 75-minute face-to-face session over a video conference. And my PayPal is paypal.me/TWFP. And usually you can get a time schedule within a day or two of when they, when somebody emails me or pays me. Okay, so I'll try to do that. Do you remember the guy you asked a troll question to? I don't. You already read that. Dmitry Provovorov says, "Hello from Russia. Hello from America. My mom TEs at me when she's stressed out. Well, it helps her feel some sense of control, no doubt. TE paired with SI is stressful. SITE or TESI is unbearable," says Bertel. Don't be dissing on the STJs, you guys. I like STJs. They can be a little bit of a. Kimberly gets a little frustrated with my father, who's an STJ, and her mother, who's an STJ, for much the same reasons. But they're good people. STJs, most of them, many of them, some of them. High SI in general kind of sucks, says Gertal. Well, I like it. I don't like it in me necessarily, but I like it. Do you think it's possible, recommendable to develop your blind spot function? No. I mean, possible, recommendable, yes, but not with any. Don't direct any effort to it. Like, I find myself that it's kind of like this. When you get life structured for yourself properly, so that you're living kind of like the life you want to live, and you become somewhat liberated from insecurities and stuff that maybe has held you back in the past and stuff. you're free and safe to understand those things most foreign to yourself and the legitimacy thereof, and it will naturally happen. But I don't think there's any point in directing attention to it, really, except that which naturally occurs. There's good purpose to direct attention towards the meta framework in general, so you have the tools to do the thinking when it occurs, but I wouldn't try to make yourself get better at shit you're blind at. It's silly. It's like taking your tennis player and saying, okay, we've practiced your forehand, your backhand, everything. Now we're going to practice this one trick shot that I need you to do. If you want to really get everything down, you got to balance the racket on your toe and hit the ball like that. Okay? I mean, you're going to spend a lot of time practicing that, and it's not going to improve your tennis game, and it's going to frustrate the fuck out of you. Okay. It's all just theory. You want to start operating a certain way? Go ahead. Thanks, Kertal. That seems a little reductive, but thanks. So what specific classification of habit is it under to make it true? And is there a better word for it than habit? I'm saying it's a manifestation of being, that the manifestation of being accumulates informational history over time is the quality that makes it a habit. The fact that I'm extrovertedly intuiting as a default almost all the time, but not all the time, is why it's not. Is why it's because I'm an open system, like everybody else. A better word for it is manifestation of self, or direction of willful attention. How does the blind slot affect the inferior function? That's a good and interesting question. I don't know how to answer it right now. Oh, I have some answer for you. I would say it converts. I think my 7th slot usually converts to my 4th slot. So when I have feelings, that'll convert into either a need to SI care for myself, or feeling really tired, or wanting to clean, or whatever. When I'm forced to deal with my 7th slot, it just sort of directly converts, with leaving some residue and some mixed up whatever behind, into my 4th slot function. That's my experience. Whether that's true for the mechanics in general, I'm not sure. Okay. Hi, Zandy, says Sheila W. Hi, Zandy, says Eric. Hello, says Zandy. Eric, why do you believe we need FI as an intentional manner, and what do you think would happen if it ceased? We wouldn't be a being then, because you have to have motivations. You have to have, and your motivations are built up over time based on who you are and wanting reality to be more conforming with your nature, basically. And that's how you decide what you want and you like and what you don't like and whatever. And then, you gotta have that. Look, basically, if people were immortal, then over time they'd probably lose their capacity to feel, to have FI. If nobody died and there wasn't any loss, there wasn't any aging, then people wouldn't have any need for FI. But then you wouldn't have any meaningful experience of the human experience. You can think of an ENTP as somebody, or an ESTP as a type that is, or especially ENTPs, that are maximally designed to not experience that weight in order to do more shit. Because weight slows you down, and weight makes you focus on what's already happened, and weight makes you focus on what you already have, and stuff like that. Whereas NETI is novelty and representations, not realities. So it's like, in some sense, if you imagine this as being heaven, for example, heaven is, you get to go a place where you have total free will, and if you're born lucky, you're resource wise and able to do what you want or whatever, then what more can you want from a perspective heaven than free will and the capacity to see the reality you will become? If you think about it like that, then yada yada, whatever. I don't know. But then that's what would happen. What seems to happen. We wouldn't be human beings anymore. CSJ said PewDiePie is an INFJ. I think he might be right. He might be right about PewDiePie. I've never formally typed the guy. I did type police him, but I haven't formally typed him. Andrew Yang 2020. I don't really know his platform. It seems a little pie in the sky to me. Like, I don't think he has the policy grounding to really do the job. I need to do it, but 2020 is coming on too fast for me to be able to do it this year, because it's going to have to wait till 2024. Eric, what time did you take the SAT? Oh, about 8 in the morning, 8 to noon. If I remember correctly. What do you mean, what date? I'm 48, so 1988. What are your thoughts on $1,000 a month? It's all about how's it getting funded. Forget about the outcome. The notion that we should talk about whether it's a good idea to have a UBI puts the cart before the horse. What is the actual proposal here? Are we going to gut everything else and redirect it to UBI? Are we going to fund it from some heretofore unrealized source? Are we going to try to raise taxes? What the hell is the funding plan here? It's a basic question in 1980s debate that no longer seems to get talked about. What's the funding plank? Eric and other TI tool users, did you ever learn that you offended someone by trying to legitimize, scrutinize their feelings? I don't think about it in terms of offending them or not, really, ever. I just think about things in terms of, did I ever overstep in that area? Yeah, I've overstepped in that area and been rightly critiqued for it. And there have been other times when people have wrongly critiqued me for that. And I basically divided it into those two categories. Probably in the latter category, they're offended. But, I don't really care if they're offended or not, I guess. Does it make sense for an ISTJ to be bad or slow at learning math? ISTJ, yes. ISTJ, sure, because math is mostly TI. INTJs probably would be able to get it pretty quick. Tony Stark is an ESFP. He's kind of a hedonist. Well, not all hedonists are ESFPs. Take yours truly, for example. Making the COK comparison of IQ testing measurement and explaining to me what measurement is valid and IQ testing is not. Who are you talking to? Me? Do ISTJs and ESFPs typically get along? They have some conflict. The ISTJ is supposed to be with ENFP, but I don't doubt that there are a lot of ISTJs who are with ESFPs. I know one named Cameron. Let's see. ESFP would annoy the ISTJ. EuroLam, they do. SI Dom dealing with an SE Dom? Ha ha ha. Look, it's going to be it's going to seem attractive at first to both parties because they validate on each other's dominant function in the external world, but it's just a pass-fail thing that's not going to last. Okay. ESFP aren't these wild people, man, they really wouldn't. ESFPs have immense energy, and even if they don't do anything, you can feel it. I agree. What about when they're all in your SI space making messes all over and being loud and you can't get peace? Their SI is not that bad. They're ignoring. What does the act of going with a term you don't fully understand as if you understand it suggest? That's putting your FE ahead of your TI. It's probably a TI tool user or maybe even a TI Dom who's letting their FE drive the bus. That's probably young. Or it could be a weak TE user who's had it work for him before or something like that. I guess I mean like more over drinks and dinner having a conversation. Having a conversation with who? Abraham Lincoln? He just talks about slavery the whole dinner. I had it. It was not fun. I thought, why did I put him on my list of historical people to talk to? I keep telling, look, slavery's not a problem anymore, Abe Lincoln. Four score and shut the fuck up. Eat your soup, Abe. I so wish I had picked Thomas Jefferson. All of us existing is just a theory, brother. Ooh, that's heavy. That's deep. I am theoretically demonized by it. An INTJ, sadly, Joey. Aw, I'm sure you're lovely, says Joey. Shabadoo. What seems to be a dead giveaway for someone with lead NE? Well, one thing that they'll do is there's the need to finish the relevant tangents. We're always trying to curtail how many tangents we deem relevant, so relevant they must be included. I've noticed this talking to Becky a lot, that she'll get out the thought that I need to hear that makes things clearer. But then she'll cover a couple of tangents that I've probably already worked out the tangents. But then sometimes she'll surprise me with a tangent that I hadn't worked out or hadn't thought about. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. But like when I think she's done enough work ideationally, she'll cover a couple more extra tangents, tangential grounds, or possible spikes, or things like that. And so in any download, especially with TI, I don't know about necessarily that vibe, but any download with TI will definitely do a lot of that. They'll seem to have at least, I just need to get 2 or 3 more parentheticals in to make sure I cover all the ground I want to cover, so this is a complete package. Because ENTPs going into making the statements with an awareness as they're saying them of where the holes might be. And so then they go at the end and fill it in with some extra shit to try to block up those holes. That's a clear sign of an ENTP, I think. I've concluded, by the way, that my own daughter, Delilah, is an ESTP. And my conversations with Becky have been the primary reason I've concluded that. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to scoot down a little bit here. So, hey, Eric, can you explain your understanding of the 6th slot function and our relationship with it? If by our you mean ENTPs or everybody's, it varies between types. So the 6th slot, I think, is the one that is difficult to say how it functions in a type without specifying the type. For me, but for everybody, it's demonstrative. You can say that much, that they're gonna demonstrate a lot of it while concurrently countervaluing it. That other people are gonna think them better at it than they think themselves, probably, but also that they don't like it. It's laborious. It doesn't matter if they're good at it, it's stupid anyway. These people, like ENTPs, have that attitude about it. But say INTPs have a much more friendly relationship with their 6th slot function because it's the same aspect of their dominant function. So since TI and NI are naturally pretty friendly with each other, whereas NE and TE are naturally very unfriendly with each other, INTPs have a happier relationship with their 6th slot function than ENTPs do. Lead NE people build elaborate mental constructions and destroy them and never actually manifest it physically. Right. Yeah. And we don't like things that have to have a physical manifestation. We ideally like everything to be resolved with words. But of course, that's not how the world is, It's like one topic leads to many rambles of direct topics, and you're trying to keep up. Everything's awesome, everyone's a friend, and they have a very unique, flamboyant personality. That's Sheila. That's a nice description of an ENFP might say something like this. I like this thing, and it's related to this other thing, which means A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Maybe. My favorite quote I hear from ENFPs I encounter, oh my God, I love that, and 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 that. I don't know what to do with those kind of conversations. I like this thing. Oh, okay. That's cool. I like stuff too sometimes. What's your point? The meaning of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances, true or false? I mean, it's a simile. They don't really have values of true or false exactly. My fingers are like sausages. True or false? Well, true? No, false. But they are kind of like sausages. Nope, not in the way I was thinking of. What's your advice to an INTP who's given up on reconciling their idleness in school and is now looking face to face with minimum wage slavery? Advice appreciated. Oh, INTPs. Have you tried pulling more bar reps? I mean, you got to get yourself some external discipline. In other words, you got to get a job that's well suited for you. Go ahead and start cheap. Go get yourself a debate coach apprentice or something if you're an INTP. Get that job. Learn how to do it. And you have the natural talent for it if you're an INTP. You'll be able to do it just fine. It'll take a little bit of learning to do. But if you're going to waste your time on minimum wage, then go to some place and say, because debate coaches make decent money, but you wouldn't start as a coach. You start as some sort of assistant coach. And, that's a good career path. And it's a very flexible career path. I got an INTP friend, Tasia. He makes his entire living just running other people's tournaments, just running tab software for other people's tournaments. He just enters the shit. It's all automated anyway. The coaches all enter their own kids. He just runs the tab software and troubleshoots and shit. Makes good money. Works on the weekends. He just works, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes a 3-day tournament, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you got to be TI smart. And you got to be TE solid. It's perfect for INTP. Let's scroll down a bit. Can you summarize how you understand MBTI evolved through making your videos? Well, it's evolved tremendously in the sense that I used to be totally wrong about it, and now I'm totally right. Well, the reason I was totally wrong before is because I got caught up in all of the display stuff like everybody else. I'd read all these descriptions and this dichotomy and that dichotomy, but I tried to fix the problems I was finding with it, and I hit a couple of dead ends in the process. So making those videos where I was articulating those problems, making documents where I was trying to address those problems, and reaching dead ends, that was very instructive to me. Also talking to various people in various capacities and asking them questions and whatever. So eventually what I did sort of like return full circle back to the beginning concept, which is pretty straightforward, and start to model it more like one would try to program a simulation instead of a package of rhetorical metaphors. And that's when it all came together for me. It's like, okay, if we remember the key word here is function, then this is something that we should be able to simulate if we were to model it correctly. And we know what elements we'd need to have to model it correctly. And we can see how these metaphorical approaches fail to do anything like that. And yeah, so that's how. Yeah, I don't have a very high IQ. I've never claimed to have a high IQ. I don't know what it is. I think it's probably around 130, 135. I don't know. I've taken some online tests and stuff on it a long time ago. I just know that there are lots of people in the world who are way smarter than me in lots of specific ways. And that in the very narrow area in which I'm very smart, I can hold my own with anybody. And there's a lot of people like that in the world. That's why I don't like IQ. It's a general thing that's dumb. Phone is done. Gotta go. Bye, Jojo Shabadoo. Oh, right. Never read those books, but I hate the movie. Actually, very boring. I'm learning from this meatloaf. You're learning from your meatloaf? What are you learning from your meatloaf? I'm learning from his pressing on the mute button. Who's pressing on the mute button? You know what, Eric, that makes perfect sense and used to attack math through TR, but at a certain point it wouldn't work anymore, so I struggled until I converted to using my TI, then I got a lot better. I'm of the opinion that like superhero stuff and comic stuff should be Netflix HBO series, kind of like what they did with The Punisher. I hate when they cram everything into a 1 or 2 hour long movie. Well, I have to say, Endgame was a little too long for me to watch in the theater. I couldn't smoke, and it started to get itchy. Are INFPs fragile emotional snowflakes cannot deal with factor logic? No. They've got very effective unconscious tool function TI. It's just they don't apply it to anything because they're always prioritizing FI. They're fine in school, and they're fine if you give them like a little competition. Like, let's have a logic competition where there's no real FI on the line. They'll be like, yeah, I'm good at this. Dinner at 7? Yeah, sure, Delilah. That sounds fine. Okay. Okay, 7's fine or whatever. If you don't feel well, that's fine. I don't gotta go. I won't be offended or have my feelings or anything. Okay, Delilah, that's fine. 7 is fine. And if you decide you don't feel well, you don't want to go, that's totally okay. I won't get my feelings hurt or anything like that. So just, let me know. Not that I don't want to go. It's just saying, don't feel obligated.
But tell her if she's not feeling well, that not let us know at the last minute. We'll go eat.
Yeah, we'll go. I'm gonna wrap up this live stream relatively soon. And, so if you, but what Kim said, I don't know, call me or whatever. Okay. All right. How is IQ invalid for just being absolute? It's not invalid. I never said it was invalid. I've always said it's absolutely relative rather than relatively absolute, which means you get an absolute comparison against a mean or a median that you can use to say, I scored more highly on this test than those people. That's not invalid. It's just doesn't really mean much of anything. That is red, not mod. That's the problem with IQ. I think regarding the INFJ thing, what I meant by struggling with FE, what I'm really getting at is it can make me go against my insights for the sake of others and make me hold it. Okay, well, that's a tool function FE thing. Yeah, ISFJs and INFJs have to watch out for their FE not working in their own interests sometimes, I'm a sucker for people that are struggling and trying to be part of the process of building them up, but it gets me to toxic one-sided dynamics sometimes. Oh, you like to help people like that? I like to have helped people. I like it when I'm helping people, and I like to have helped people. But I don't like to help people as a goal in itself, because that would imply that I don't know. It confuses me. Okay. I think a big 5 test. Low in conscientiousness and high in openness and agreeableness. That's another thing like IQ. That's what you get. You get a comparison to the mean on those scores on that test. That's what you get. Like I just calculated, it is 134% SAT in the year, and the pre-1974 SATs. It wasn't pre-1974. It was 1988. Oh, you think that's high? 134? That's not like. I mean, I always hear that like you have to have 140 to be high IQ. Okay. Does the pendulum of the mind alternate between sense and nonsense, or between right and wrong? It doesn't alternate between any binaries. There's no such pendulum. There's a variety of different ways to attend to reality as it manifests in each of the 2 primary dimensions. So to describe the mechanics of consciousness as pendular would be mistaken. The tool function second slot, yes. Good afternoon, Angent here. Have you always been naturally articulate, or is it a trait that's been developed? I wouldn't say my ENTP friend has a way with words. He may not be an ENTP, but yes, I've always been naturally articulate, and it's a trait I've developed. The thing is, what I'm struck by is when people like Becky speaks very similarly in her fluidity and her vocabulary, and the ease with which she sounds smart, you know. Now, granted, she's not as polished as I am at it, but it has the engine is so similar.
A little baby.
The engine is so similar that it suggests to me that it's something just natural, or it may also be born of the fact that I read a whole bunch when I was a kid. My whole childhood, I read. I read in school. I read under my desks when I was supposed to read in class. I'd read my Swords and Dragons books and stuff like that. So, I don't know. But debate helps, obviously. And YouTube has helped a lot. My fluidity's gotten better. My ability to move at a certain pace and not pause too long. My FE awareness of the audience. My need to shift. All that kind of shit has gotten much more on point because of YouTube. Yeah. Hey, thank you, Sinjin, once again, summing it up beautifully. Big Five tells you nothing you don't already know. Exactly. Hey, you mean I'm not that conscientious? Me? Pray for Jamaica. Okay. Dear God, please help Jamaica. I feel inner peace every time Sinjin shows up. Me too, a little bit. I feel like you know, like there's a Jedi watching out, you know. Huge earthquake. Oh, there was a huge earthquake? I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry, Jamaica. Are you high in openness according to the test, Sinjin? Eric, I thought you said 1948. No, 1988. I'm not that old. Yeah, how old would I be if it was 1948? I'd be 40 more years old. So I'd be 88 years old. Do I look 88 to you, Red Biscuit? Come on now. You thought I was 88 years old?
You kind of look 88.
I don't think I look 88. I would love to date Hello Kitty. I don't know if Hello Kitty puts out, Copperman. So I suck at SE for sure, but the last piece that I don't understand at all is how would TI look in an INFJ? Well, TI is third slot. It's ambition. It's an ambition of sorts. It's your hidden agenda. It's what you feel most satisfied when you accomplish in that area. I guess it ultimately means you want to attain a self in which you have your NI, your FE, and your TI in perfect coordination, which is to say, your NI tells you a singular truth. Your FE shapes it or understands that truth about some sort of social things. And then the TI, it discovers that each time that it's logically, fully argumentationally defensible, waterproof argumentationally, you know? So if you have all those things every time, then you're living the INFJ dream. You don't have to make any sacrifices. The challenge for INFJ is they begin life using the easier way to get things accomplished, which is just play with people's motivations. But they quickly, I think, realize the hollowness of that as they start to suspect that nobody likes them. They like how they like the highly effective perspective management regimen that the INFJ is executing, not the INFJ himself. And so then the INFJ starts thinking, well, you know, I need to prioritize more of this argumentational defense ability. And you can see how for an INFJ, my like loose cannonyness is very appealing because that's where they're going in life. For an ENTP, their polished grace is very appealing. That's where I'm hopefully going in life, you know? So in that sense, ENTPs need to become more like INFJs to become more optimized. And INFJs need to become more like ENTPs to become more optimized. Okay. I think I'm going to end this live stream now because we're talking about dinner pretty soon, and I know I've got people, possibly Sheila, possibly. I mean, I've always gotten along. Thank you, Stephen Rain. I appreciate it. No problem. You can come give me the quickie anytime, Stephen Rain. I appreciate the wham. I appreciate the bam, and I think the thank you is unnecessary but appreciated. The ma'am borderlines on gratuitous. So gracious is your expression there. Anyway, so thank you also to Sheila for the super chat. I appreciate that, and you can debate me anytime you want. Shoot me an email saying I want to talk to you. It's gonna have to be on camera. And you got to be on, we got to make a video about it. I don't want to just debate you in my spare time or something. So that's fine. You can debate me about IQ. The thing is, pay attention to what I said here today. Remember, the claims I'm making are very limited. I'm not saying it's invalid. I'm saying it has limited meaning or use. And most of those uses that people use it for are bad uses that take them away from meaningful truths. Now, listen, if I take an IQ test and I get like 150 or something on it, then I'm going to change my tune entirely. Then IQ is totally the most important thing. But as long as I remain relatively dumb, IQ doesn't matter. Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. Love y'all. And don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Thanks for super chats. And thanks for the birthday wishes. Walk and Wool, I'll probably be back on later tonight doing something, making something up here. Get up on the down.